All right, everybody. Again, that might have been a low 30 seconds, but anyway, thank you so much for sticking with us. I'm Heather King, Managing Director of the Future Offices series. I'm so excited to have you here today. If this is your first session with us, thanks so much for joining us. If you've been with us the entire time, then this is fantastic. If you missed anything, you'll be able to catch up on any sessions you missed, as we will have them on demand starting tomorrow. But we want to jump into our next session. But right before we do, just remember, everybody's been amazing today with your questions and answers. So please make sure you type those questions into our Q&A box to the right of your screen, to your stream, and then also any polls you see in there, please answer those as well. So we're going to jump into our session. Also, remember, we have our roundtable at 3 o'clock, so that'll be going into a Zoom room, but I want to make sure everybody remembers about that. All right, so now I've gotten all of that out of the way, so let's start our session, which is why and how a hybrid office needs to understand and support employee commutes, with Erin Renaka, the VP of Product for TransitScreen. Erin, I'm going to let you do your own introductions besides when me reading your name and title and company, and I'm going to throw it to you. Please take the virtual screen. Virtual stage.
Virtual stage.
Virtual stage on the screen, exactly.
Fantastic. Okay, just to check, Heather, real quick, are you able to see my screen okay?
I can see it all. Go for it. You are green light.
Green light. Fantastic. Thanks so much. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome. First and foremost, Heather, thanks for the introduction, and a huge thank you to the entire team at Future Offices for having me here today, and to everyone here for attending our conversation on why and how hybrid office needs to understand and support employee commutes. Before we begin, I'd just like to quickly introduce myself and how I came to speak to you here today. So today I'm speaking to you as VP of Product at TransitScreen, which is a company which I'll tell you about a bit more in just a moment. But my background actually spans 18 years in technology, with about half of that time in 2 commercial real estate roles that together bring me a very unique perspective, I think, on the commuter-focused products that we create today at TransitScreen, and really is why I'm here today. The first role I'm going to quickly introduce you to is, well, about 10 years ago, in a career twist of fate, I guess you could say, that could only happen in the startup world, I somehow, despite being a technologist, somehow found myself as the head of global real estate for a unicorn startup, Living Social, if you remember those guys, back from 2011 to 2015. It was there at Living Social that I experienced essentially a crash course like none other in the world of commercial real estate. I essentially inherited everything from real estate portfolio planning, day-to-day operations, and employee experience all in one, essentially as a team of one. In that role, I opened and operated roughly 75 offices in 15 countries across the course of just 2 years. And during that time, really gained a true understanding of the needs and wants, especially as it related to the commute and amenities of our 4,500 employees worldwide. Most recently, after that, I was VP of Marketing Technology for North Central and South America at corporate real estate leader JLL. It was there that I gained firsthand experience in the prop tech space, really looking at real estate through the lens of the tenant, the broker, the owner, and the investor. Which brings me up to today as VP of Product for TransitScreen. This role really presents a unique opportunity for me, and also I'm so excited to speak to you here today to bring that corporate real estate and technology background to the table together, really in order to address what is potentially the most challenging aspect of work, and always has been, which is the commute. And speaking of the commute, people hate commuting. Yes, you heard it here first. 79% of people want to work from home just simply to avoid the commute. And further, 84% of respondents to a recent survey showed that simply not having to commute was the biggest workplace perk that they've gained from a hybrid office through the pandemic. Which brings us kind of back to where I started, which is the very concept of a hybrid office, which everybody here knows at its core is not a new concept at all. In fact, back in 2012, almost 10 years ago, more than half of our offices at Living Social were actually already designed and functioning as a hybrid workforce. Many of those were actually just pure collaboration space where folks from the surrounding area could actually gather to meet, whiteboard, and just simply enjoy a bit of the on-site amenities and the employee culture that we were striving so hard to build. Really from day one, from the day we opened our first office here in downtown Washington, DC, the commute and its negative impacts on recruiting and retaining talent was front and center at Living Social. We tackled it head on with the commute and workplace amenities pretty much informing every single real estate and employee experience decision. We recognized early on that getting employees into the office required an absolute no-hassle commute, great destination amenities, and the opportunity to interact and experience the workplace culture in person. Which basically brings us to today's first takeaway. The pandemic has rapidly shifted previous positions on remote and hybrid work. Now, this is groundbreaking insight, I know. However, when you read those words, my guess is you were just thinking about the mindset of the employer. However, the point here is that there are actually two sides to this coin, with frankly, the other side being the most important. For employers, this shift is primarily out of concerns around attracting and retaining talent, just like at Living Social, what we experienced back in 2012. Now that need is primarily driven by a massive talent pool that now finds itself newly introduced to and expecting the flexibility of a hybrid workplace. What Living Social essentially dealt with as the exception for a subset of the workforce when we were trying to really compete against other startups to attract and essentially retain the absolute best talent has now become the expectation and the emerging norm across all industries and all sectors. It's been a pretty incredible shift. And that shift is really shaking corporate cultures to their core, as everybody on this call knows is experiencing, and probably why many of you are here today. An amazing example of this, and one I point to frequently, is Rich Barton, CEO of Zillow, a company you guys are all familiar with as well. Now, pre-pandemic, Rich was well known as driving a culture. He was a strong believer in the need for that in-office culture. Remote work at Zillow was an extreme exception. It was not taken lightly, and it came with a lot of structure around it. It was not what folks think of as a truly flexible workspace today. Now today, Zillow has adopted a flexible work arrangement and a culture, and you can see by the dates on those two tweets, one of which is a little bit interesting, that shift in mindset and that shift in culture happened really fast. And frankly, it happened right up front when the threat of employee turnover began to take hold. Employees were concerned about coming back to the office, and the mindset then and now is that essentially you face the option of either forcing employees back to the office and losing them, or coming up, as we are talking about today, with a hybrid work arrangement that works a bit for everyone based on their own individual needs. And Rich and Zillow are not alone. And I suspect that's why many of us are here today. In the post-pandemic future of work, 9 out of 10 organizations will be combining remote and on-site working to some extent in different ways. And I'll bet you, just like Zillow and Living Social before it, much of this decision at the end of the day is largely driven by concern over employee turnover and or the inability to attract the best talent. Now that puts a lot of the folks here, and including myself, in really uncharted territory. On-site amenities, the formulaic playbook here, that on-site amenities have always been the best way for investors to attract high-paying tenants, and tenants to attract and retain the absolute best talent. That's the appeal. But what happens when employees really aren't there in person all the time to realize the value of those on-site amenities? Well, the fading value of the on-site amenity is not as dire as it may seem, because the commute actually isn't how your employees get to work. And that's the second takeaway I want you to walk from today. Now, before you call me crazy and click the leave button, I'll explain what I mean and how this is relevant to the previous observation about amenities. I'm going to ask you to shift your perspective a bit. Buildings exist for one purpose, right? For companies to rent space within them. That's why people buy buildings. That's why people operate them, et cetera. Companies rent space in those buildings because they offer the on-site and nearby amenities that make that building appealing to the employees of that company. And if you step back knowing that, and you look at the really, really big picture, essentially everyone involved is really a piece in the middle of a giant nesting doll, with the employee being the absolute smallest piece and the building with its centralized amenities being the largest container. And then ultimately the commute being the act of putting those pieces together and connecting the smallest piece, the employee, through the middle piece, the office or the workplace, to the largest piece, which is the building, the container, and the amenities that are associated with it. And if you think of the in-office workplace in that manner, a container of containers, the remote workplace that everybody's concerned about, that creates this hybrid workplace, the home, is really no different, right? The same rules at their core apply. It's still a nesting doll with the employee, the smallest piece at the core, the home, the new workplace, the remote workplace in the middle, and then the amenities that make up the container are ever so slightly different. The amenities, the container, are no longer the building. They're actually dispersed around the neighborhood. They are the surrounding geographical area from where the employee actually lives, from where that new workplace is. And this is where things, when you start to look at the actual office and then the new concept of the remote office as equals, start to become a bit more clear. And hopefully for everyone on this call, just a little bit less stressful. Realize that in a hybrid workplace, the employee that works from home part of the time, all of the time, actually loves the flexibility, right? And they think based on that flexibility that they've managed to shed the commute. But in fact, you may also think that as well. But once again, if you step back and look at the big picture, the reality is really, really far. The definition of a commute is a regular journey of some distance to and from one's place of work. And now with home being that workplace, amenities and benefits once convenient on-site at the office, that in-office, in-person appeal, are now dispersed geographically at and around the home. And that requires time and energy to get to things such as cafes, the gym, childcare, et cetera. Things that they used to realize the benefit of right in one centralized location, but now they actually have to travel to. While flexible, yes, because errands and the use of amenities needs to take place ad hoc in between meetings and other work obligations, this new remote commute is actually incredibly inefficient. And frankly, at the end of the day, it's disruptive to productivity and time management. However, it is actually that friction, that inefficiency, that the remote commuter will begin to notice over time. And thus, for the remote worker, that presents a huge opportunity to improve the remote employee experience. So how can you support them? A great start, and something everyone here is likely to already be keenly aware of, is simply realizing that employee expectations driven by a newly experienced remote work reality are what has accelerated demand for this hybrid workspace, right? Then recognizing that the need to commute to and from a workplace, office, or home, whether that commute is driven by convenience of centralized on-site amenities, in-person collaboration, and/or the physical office itself, or at home, where the draw is flexibility, but the need to access those same type of amenities, those gyms and daycare, et cetera, all of that remains. That really brings us to the best takeaway, frankly, of our conversation. The challenging hybrid commute reality is actually an employee experience opportunity. Things to consider. Every single commuter is a novice again, whether they want to accept it or not. Whether they're commuting to the office at varying days and times due to different work schedules and mixing of pods and groups and teams, et cetera, or they're commuting to amenities on an as-needed basis between shifting meeting schedules from home. Every single day is unique. There's no longer any such thing as a predictable commute pattern or plan for anyone. That entire playbook is out the window, right? Because of that, phenomena that we're experiencing now, such as what people are calling Carmageddon, which is everyone just driving to work alone in their car, is not only a real concern, it's already beginning to happen and it's not sustainable. And finally, it's just been a while since your employees were in the office, right? What seems like an eternity, it was almost a year and a half ago that we all just dropped everything and went home and just didn't return. And for some, myself included, until just a short time ago, have never actually stepped foot in the office at all. So therein, those things together is the employee experience opportunity. Technologies like ours at TransitScreen, they exist to provide you and your company easy to implement and cost-effective ways to not only gain visibility into and understand your employee commute needs and patterns, but most importantly for you, it offers you an opportunity to actually amenitize the commute. Just like any other amenity that provides value by making your employees' life easier, you can now offer amenities that help make commuting easier, more informed, convenient, and frankly, simpler for everyone in your workplace. And that workplace, again, could be the office to and from home, or it could be home to and from the amenities and the things around them in the surrounding geographical area. These types of employee experience opportunities and these offerings pack a lot of value for employees. And frankly, when it comes to recruiting and retention, they differentiate you in a predominantly hybrid workplace world. And bringing it back to the very beginning, commuters, especially in a hybrid workforce that sees them working in the office one day and remotely from home the next, they need far more mobility information than ever before. Everyone now, again, is a novice. There are no expert commuters. And these commuters, they need it personalized, timely, relevant, and actionable. So with that, I'd just like to quickly introduce you to some commute amenities you may not be aware of, but ones that you can offer quickly and inexpensively, providing value to you and your emerging workforce today. You can also, the great thing is, continue to leverage these types of tools over time to better understand and thereby cyclically improve your employee commute experience, and over time, through that cyclical improvement, evolve with your workforce, gradually find ways to make the commute easier and bring more and more individuals back into your office over time as they're comfortable doing so. The first such offering I want to talk to you about for your employees and guests who are in your office. Real-time information displays, such as the one you see on the screen, our namesake product, TransitScreen. These give people exactly the information they need on the go when they need it as they're traversing your lobby, right? They're rushing to catch the bus, rushing to catch the train. They want to find out where the nearest Lime scooter is, whatever it may happen to be. As they're walking by, at a glance, the latest information, almost up to the second, is right there on the screen for them. So whether it's train and bus arrival times, again, rideshare availability, weather, employee messaging, or a highlight of the amenities nearby, this type of solution is not only incredibly functional and valuable, it also conveys to passersby that, frankly, you as an employer, as a company, you care about your employees' work-life balance, and you're forward thinking to a more sustainable, mobility-friendly world once Carmageddon begins to subside. And speaking of Carmageddon, another incredibly powerful tool and a true standout amenity is real-time transformation in your employee's pocket, which is exemplified by our offering we call CityMotion. Now, CityMotion not only offers real-time information, but also commuter-focused features that can alert employees when their preferred bus or train will be arriving at the nearest station to where they live or to where they work. and capability for you to push real-time, time-sensitive information to your employees, noting that the office is closed today, the office is too crowded today, today is the greetings day, whatever it may happen to be. The great part is this type of solution provides value to your employees across your entire hybrid workforce, not just the commute, not just the in-office folks or the remote office, but really it's every trip, every time. Whether you're going to the Starbucks down the street, the Target across town, daycare, or to the office 4 miles away, it works every time. This solution actually gives your in-office commuters and your remote commuters the information they need in the moment, anywhere, to get them where they want to go as quickly and efficiently as possible. And finally, a solution such as our latest CommuteWise offering, which on the surface is a very, very simple and elegant means for you to educate your employees about their personalized commute options and thus empower them to make their best choice for what type of commute they want. Do they want to bike? Do they want to walk? Do they want to take a van pool? Some private mode of transportation that you as an employer specifically offer as a benefit. You're really trying to let them make their best choice for them, that personalization. Behind the scenes, however, this type of solution, this solution also provides you the visibility that you are absolutely going to need in the return to office hybrid workforce world into what your employees' commutes are like, what are their needs, what are their wants, because it's that information, it's that even little bit of insight that enables you for the first time and in a critical time like now to make more informed benefit and amenity decisions that help ensure your hybrid workforce, your arrangement stands out in recruitment and retention conversations. And so that it stands out, again, to attract that best talent, retain that best talent, and then deliver the employee experience that you strive for, whether that experience is the remote home worker, the truly hybrid worker, or the one that is fully back in the office. Thank you. And Heather, back to you.
All righty, thank you. All right, let's jump into some questions. And everybody remember, we do have the time for some questions, so do not be shy. You haven't been shy, so I know I don't have to remind you of all of this. So make sure, but be sure to ask your questions now while you have the chance. Okay, so my team and I have been struggling to figure out what and how to prioritize amenities for the office versus home. Any suggestions on how we should think about this?
Interesting. All right, well, let's see. Looking at this, personally speaking, based on experience, I'd pretty much start with the cards you're dealt right now, which may or may not be the best cards. But essentially, you look at it, you've got an office and you have office amenities, right? And those amenities predate most likely the pandemic and such. And both of those things are just sitting there being paid for and underutilized, right? Like that's a lot of pressure. That hurts. So I would consider the lost opportunity cost of continuing to not address the biggest barrier to returning folks to the office. And again, as we discussed, that's pretty much the commute, right? The statistics on that don't lie. If it were me, knowing that job one is like we discussed, I really would focus on amenitizing that commute, right? Reduce that upfront friction as quickly as you can, so that you can start put your return to office plan, all of the other mechanisms in place, whether it's redesigning your workplace, going to hot desking, different teams on different days, whatever it is, amenitizing the commute, greases the skids, and it allows, it helps you to remove those objections, right? That difficult commute objection from your teams. Second would really be to recognize you're probably in for Carmageddon. So I would own that. And probably start deploying those commute amenities ahead of time, so you can start to shift folks back to more sustainable modes, knowing that Carmageddon is going to happen. And finally, I think probably once you have as many folks back in the office as you can or want to, then I would probably circle back and start to amenitize the remote commute. Frankly speaking, those folks right now are pretty content just being remote, and they'll probably be pretty content for a while, so that buys you a little bit of runway. So Sorry, long response, Heather, but yeah.
No, that's good. I mean, we had somebody who said that, you know, people know what amenities they have where they live and they adopt what they're doing, and that the flexibility is what people love. So a lot of people love not, you know, quote unquote, wasting their time commuting. Although I would argue some people do like their commutes because it gives them a chance to go from one way of thought to another.
Yep. I'm one of those people. So
I was one of those people, that's for sure. And then I realized it was 90 minutes each way, and oh my gosh.
Yep.
So another question is, how do I get buy-in from leadership if they don't seem to feel that investing in support for commuters is necessary?
Oof. Okay. That is a great question. Honestly, not an easy one to answer. There's no one size fits all. But I think, you know, stepping back to what we discussed today, that new lens on the commute, right? How integral it is truly to recruitment and retention, right? That can give you some good talking points and new ways to frame the conversation that maybe create a bit of an aha moment with your leadership, which I really hope that did today, thinking of the remote commute as a thing, right? I will say I also find that numbers really talk when having conversations such as these, and really can help move the needle. The biggest and clearest bang for the buck I usually go to, frankly, is partnering with your HR department, really to get to the bottom line impact of employee turnover and the cost to recruit, really making your case with that. The reason I sort of go to that, is because the foundation of the entire conversation, right? The motivation around the hybrid workplace, everything we're talking about is because of recruitment and retention. So if you can bring it back to that, those numbers actually add up really, really fast and do open some eyes. I think, you know, the average cost to cover the turnover of an employee is about 50% of the annual salary and benefits. That's pretty staggering.
Alrighty, so the last question we've got right now, and everybody remember, we have time for one more after this if anybody's interested. You know, a company like Google, their amenities are obviously incredible because their budget is seemingly infinite. So what are your suggestions on how to provide similar levels of support, but on a much more realistic budget?
Yes, Google. Probably the budgetary dreams of every person on this phone call or on this call. They really do have some incredible perks and amenities, pretty cutting edge in some ways. But thinking about this conversation, I think the one that I would come back to that's most relevant is the Google Shuttle. And the Google Shuttle, which, if you're not familiar with it, it really brings their urban core San Francisco-based workforce to their remote campus just south of the Bay, nearly 40 miles away. It's roughly an hour-long commute, I think, with traffic. Benefits such as the shuttle, though, they really get to the core of making the commute less stressful, right? And it's easier to adopt then for employees. It's tearing down that barrier, that objection to the commute. They offer a stress-free commute, but they also offer Wi-Fi, which enables employees to read, nap, and even do work. And what I like about that is Google has effectively, I guess, amenitized the commute experience, like we talked about. But they've actually managed to do it by increasing potential working hours and productivity, and even reducing their carbon footprint by reducing those drive alone commutes, that Carmageddon. It's really quite elegant. Now it's also insanely expensive, as the person who asked the question mentioned. But the thing is, you don't need to offer private luxury coaches for your employees, right? But you can offer simple benefits. Little things such as guaranteed ride home programs, right? Which takes the stress out of the unpredictable nature of public transportation sometimes, or weather when you ride your bike, whatever it may happen to be. There's also a growing number of fantastic small and large contract van pool companies, right? And car sharing companies that are pretty affordable at the end of the day. You can set up a simple car sharing program simply through an email distribution, or longer term, frankly, you can even speak with your landlord, right? To upgrade amenities such as bike rooms, put in electric car charging stations, et cetera, because those investments actually benefit you both at the end of the day. And finally, not to leave them out, your remote commuters, I'd focus on the amenities by offering them discounts to like food delivery services, dry cleaning, pickup and delivery. Find ways to reduce that remote commute, that kind of chaos in their day, that inefficiency, by bringing some of those same benefits that you offer on site in nearby amenities. Actually try to find ways to bring those to the individual's workplace at home.
Awesome. Well, Aaron, that did actually take us to the end of our session. So thank you so very much. That was great. Yeah, it goes by so fast, these half-hour sessions, you know.
It really, it does.
They do. So thank you so much. And everyone, remember, TransitScreen is one of our fabulous sponsors, and they have a booth in our expo hall. So if you're interested in learning more about them and want to see what they do in action or have any questions about what they do, please make sure you go to our virtual expo hall, go knock on their door virtually and take a look, download their information, take a look at their videos, and say hi to who's ever manning the store. So Aaron, thanks so much again. Everybody remember that we also have our roundtable at 3 o'clock. So you'll have to go out of this and into Zoom for that. But before that, we do have another session going on. So don't go anywhere, because you get 3 whole minutes now to take a little bit of a break, get that other cup of coffee, do what you got to do, because in 3 minutes, we're going to be running into our next session, a practical approach to transforming the workplace, taking advantage of the opportunity to reimagine your office space. So jump back over here in just 3 minutes, and I'll be here when you do. Thank you.